I'm Maurice Powell. Welcome to A Little Light Music, Manx Radio's regular Thursday evening classical music hour. And I'm devoting this evening's programme to music with a connection to the sea, which I've long wanted to do. I mean, since we're surrounded by the briny, I thought it was about time. And there's an amazing number of pieces of music of all sorts that have the sea as a theme. I could probably do 3 or 4 programs. But anyway, this is the first one, and what better way to start than with the opening of one of the most wonderful pieces of music about the sea ever written. I'm talking, of course, about Vaughan Williams' Sea Symphony. The whole 4-movement work, of course, is vast. It lasts over an hour. I'm only going to play the first 3.5 minutes, really, as a kind of an opener, a kind of a little overture. The whole work was performed here with the Teachers' Choir and many other choirs as well, conducted by the late lamented Alan Pickard, probably in the late 80s or early 90s. I wasn't here then, but apparently it was a most wonderful occasion, and one wonders if our present Isle of Man Choral Society would ever consider programming the Vaughan Williams Sea Symphony. I can just imagine it ringing around the Royal Hall in the Villa Marina. Certainly something to think about. However, written in between 1903 and 1909, it took Vaughan Williams quite a long time to complete this work, and it was first performed at the Leeds Festival in 1910 with the composer conducting. Now, like Mahler's 8th Symphony, it is one of the few symphonies that actually has chorus in every movement, so it's really a huge choral symphony. The words were by Walt Whitman from his poem Leaves of Grass, which had a great influence over not only Vaughan Williams, but Delius as well. So here we are, the very opening of Vaughan Williams' Sea Symphony. Behold the sea, and on its limitless heaving breast, the ships. And so I faded the music there before it gets into the next section of that opening movement of Vaughan Williams' C Symphony. Now, did any other composer that we can think of write such an opening to his first symphony? I mean, most first symphonies, I'm thinking of Dvorak, Tchaikovsky, Schubert, of course, I mean, Schumann even. Their first symphonies can be rather tentative and derivative, obviously, of the composers that they were most influenced by. But this is a fully fledged, magnificent work. It couldn't be by anybody else except Vaughan Williams, and yet it seems to have come from nowhere. Remarkable, remarkable piece. And I say, I would love to hear it in the Villa Marina. In fact, I'd love to be in the orchestra in the Villa Marina if it was ever performed here again. However, we must move on. Something now in our sort of British light music vein, the music of Ron Goodwin, one of the most attractive arrangers and composers, really, of the 20th century. Very much in the generation after sort of Hayden Wood and Eric Coates. I'm going to play two pieces from the music he wrote for Drake 400. This was a commission from the City Fathers of Plymouth in May 1980 to celebrate Drake's return 400 years earlier to Plymouth after his world-wide voyage. There are several movements, but I've chosen a couple. First of all, here's a rather jolly march, Plymouth Ho. The bright and breezy march Plymouth Ho from Ron Goodwin's Drake 400, and here is a more reflective piece from later on in the same music. This is the Eddystone Seascape. Another fine seascape there from the pen of Ron Goodwin from his Drake 400 suite. We heard Plymouth Hoe, a sprightly march to start with, and there, as I say, a fine seascape, the Eddystone seascape, and I think maybe I heard the bell at the beginning, maybe of the Eddystone Lighthouse. Could be mistaken. Sharper ears than mine would have picked that up, I'm sure. Now, well, we're well out at sea now, or we soon will be. I'm going to look at one of Stamford's, Sir Charles Villiers Stamford's Songs of the Fleet. Songs of the Fleet was a series of songs, really a sequel to perhaps the better-known Songs of the Sea, which includes such famous songs as Drake's Drum and The Old Superb. We might come on to that later in the programme if we have time. But the Songs of the Fleet were first performed at the Leeds Festival in 1910. They're not as well known, as I said, as the Songs of the Sea, but in many ways I prefer them. They're more reflective. Nevertheless, it's hard to resist The Old Superb or Drake's Drum. Anyway, let's hear the first of Stamford's Songs of the Fleet. This is called Sailing at Dawn, and the opening lines are, one by one the pale stars die before the day now. One by one the great ships of the line are stirring from their sleep.
One by one the pale stars die before the day now. One by one the great ships are stirring from their sleep. Cables all are rumbling, anchors all away now. Now the fleets are fleet again, gliding towards the deep. And warfare of
one of Stanford's wonderful songs of the fleet. Of course, the words there are looking back really to a time when, say, Nelson's flagship Victory really did lead the line, the ships of the line into battle. Wonderful stuff. Hopefully we'll have time later in the programme for one of the Songs of the Sea. Now we're keeping up with our reflections on the sea. I turn to the music of John Ansell. His best known work related to the sea is probably the overture Plymouth Hoe, but equally fine, in my opinion, is another concert piece called The Windjammer. Now, Windjammer was really a slang name for sailing ships of the sort of Cutty Sark type, 3 or 4 masters, really, that used to sail, race around the world, in fact. He called this, Ansel, a nautical overture. And of course, in the 1930s, when this piece was written, you could still see tall ships. You could still see windjammers occasionally on the high seas. This particular piece makes great use of the shanty Shenandoah. So, John Ansell's The Windjammer. John Ansell's fine concert overture, The Windjammer. And now to something that will be very, very familiar to some people and perhaps hardly known at all to others, but it is a very relaxing piece after that rather energetic and colourful picture of a great sailing ship at sea. This is Ronald Binge's Sailing By. Now, this was composed in 1963, and apparently it was composed not in an offhand way, but the BBC wanted to commission Ronnie Binge for a short piece, and they said, "Oh, don't make it too complicated. Just something very, very simple." So he churned out the most simplest sort of slow waltz he could possibly find, and it became immensely popular. It is the music, in fact, for the late evening shipping forecast, which apparently comes on at 12:48 on Radio 4 and lasts approximately 2 minutes, depending. And although it was actually taken off for a couple of years, in 1993, there was such an outrage at this piece being removed from the schedules that in 1995 it was reinstated. I always imagine trawlermen somewhere up in the seas north of north of somewhere where trawlers go, south of Iceland, north of the Orkneys somewhere, tuning in and listening to the forecast with a big mug of cocoa or something in hand, and planning the rest of their voyage. I don't know, maybe that's entirely fanciful. But it is a very relaxing piece, and a lot of people do find it as an aid to restful sleep. Well, I certainly do. I very often find myself listening to it, even at sort of 5 to 1 in the morning. BBC Radio 4 turns off, and then the World Service comes on, and so on. So here we go. This is Ronald Binge, Sailing By. So, is anybody still awake out there? Ahoy and all that? That was Ronnie Binge's Sailing By. And now to the music of Elgar. In 1917, he set 4 poems by Kipling called "The Fringes of the Fleet" on the general theme of shipboard life. And these songs certainly were performed in some sort of costumes. I think they were written for 4 baritones, and they would dress in sort of oil cloths or whatever it is, seaman capes, oil capes and sou'westers and big wellies, stuff like that. And these songs were kind of performed in a kind of a theatrical way. Kipling was appalled and actually forbade any further performances because he as I say, he was dismayed at the way these songs were being turned into some kind of music hall act. Nevertheless, they were recorded in 1917, but they're not again until just 10 years ago. So, Elgar, The Fringes of the Fleet. This is the first of the 4 songs, The Lowestoft Boat.
In Lowestoft a boat was laid. Ah, well, what he do say? And she was built for the herring trade. But she has gone rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. They gave her government coal to burn and a QF gun at bow and stern, and sent her out rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. Her skipper was mate of a bucko ship, which always killed 1 man per trip. So he is used to rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. Her mate was skipper of a chapel in Wales, and so he fights in topper and tails. Religious, the rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. Her engineer is 58, so he's prepared to meet his fate, which ain't unlikely. Rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. A leading stoker's 17, so he don't know what the judgments mean, unless he cops them rolling, 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 the Lord knows where. Her cook was chef in the Lost Dog's home. When they all come a-rolling, 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 around the North Sea, rolling, the Lord knows where. The Lord knows where.
That was The Lowest Off Boat, the first of 4 songs Elgar wrote to poems by Kipling under the title The Fringes of the Fleet. As I say, they are available in a modern recording, and they're very, very interesting. In fact, the whole disc is interesting and contains a lot of music by English composers about the sea, including some other works by John Ansell and even Hayden Wood. And it's a very fine disc. I thoroughly recommend you can search it out. Now, Frank Bridge, remembered these days as the teacher of the young Benjamin Britten, but a very formidable composer in his own right. About the same time as Vaughan Williams' Sea Symphony appeared, his own 4-movement orchestral work entitled The Sea appeared, and I'm going to play the second movement, which is really a kind of scherzo. It's called Sea Foam. A wonderful piece of deft, whimsical orchestration there by Frank Bridge from his 4-movement orchestral work, The Sea. That was Sea Foam, the second movement, which is a kind of a scherzo. A lovely, lovely piece. A very considerable composer, Frank Bridge. If you don't know any of his music, The Sea is a very good place to start. It's almost impressionistic, isn't it? It reminds me a little bit of Debussy's La Mer, of course. Which leads me to reflect that all the music in this particular evening's programme is by English composers. But of course, perhaps in the next programme I devote to the sea, of course we'll have music by composers from other lands. I mean, obviously Wagner comes to mind, Rimsky-Korsakov, and of course Debussy with his La Mer. Lots of composers, apart from English composers, have written very fine music about the sea, although I personally think ours is best. However, where should we go now? Hayden Wood. Now, this is by way of introducing a special concert which is coming up on the 24th of November at the Villa Marina. So here we go. It's the gala concert, this year's gala concert of the Isle of Man Symphony Orchestra, conducted by myself. It's at the Villa Marina, as I said, on Sunday the 24th of November at 2:30. Tickets are already on sale and going very, very well. You can get them from thevillagaiety.com, or you can phone and get tickets on 600 555. The main work in the first half is the Elgar Cello Concerto, played by Ewa Midzeska, who has played on the island before, wonderful Polish cellist. And in the second half, we have Elgar's wonderful concert work in the south. There's also music by Walton, Delius, and a wonderful piece for strings and harp by Vaughan Williams. This will be my last concert conducting the symphony orchestra, so it's quite a special occasion for me, but I do think we've got an absolutely cracking programme for you, so I hope as many of you as possible will make it. So the basic details then: Isle of Man Symphony Orchestra Gala Concert, 24th of November at the Villa Marina, starting at 2:30. Now, one of the pieces that we'll be playing as a kind of an extra piece, or a compulsory encore if you like, is a recently rediscovered little march by Hayden Wood called Lutine Ahoy, based on the idea of the Lutine Bell, of course, in Lloyd's shipping insurance company. It's a wonderful little piece. This is a recording, only one of two I've ever heard, and it's never been recorded commercially, of course, taken from radio broadcasts. So there's a little bit of an introduction first. So Hayden Wood's sprightly little march, Lutine Ahoy.
We're off to London now for a piece by Hayden Wood, the man who wrote the music for that immortal First World War song, Roses of Picardy, which brought him rich rewards. But he was never a man to rest on his royalties. And among his many compositions are 15 suites, 9 rhapsodies, 8 overtures, and 180 songs. And this march, Lutine Ahoy, inspired by the sound of the famous Lutine Bell at Lloyd's of London. Wood had been commissioned to write a march for Lloyd's, and when he heard the bell being rung for the Queen, as she laid the foundation stone for their new headquarters in 1952, he knew he had to include it. The Lutine Bell has a symbolic role at Lloyd's, and you'll hear a bell ring out from the back of the stage towards the end of Hayden Wood's Lutine Ahoy. The question is, will it be once for bad news or two for good news?
So, the march, Lutine Ahoy by Hayden Wood, taken from a live broadcast, whatever you could hear there at the end, from a BBC concert. I don't really have the details here. The march itself was written in 1952 or 1953, and which is near the end of Hayden Wood's life, but it still shows you have plenty of energy to write something as charming as that. Did you hear the Lutine bell? Wasn't very loud, was it? But it certainly will be at our performance with the Isle of Man Symphony Orchestra. I should know the name of it by now. I've been conducting the orchestra for 20 years. The Isle of Man Symphony Orchestra. You will be able to hear the Lutine bell. Not the actual Lutine bell, of course, but something like it, when we perform it at our concert at the Villa Marina on the 24th of March, commencing at 2:30. So we're very nearly at the end of our programme. I did promise I might play something else of Stanford's wonderful songs about the sea. So here's the last of the Songs of the Sea, as opposed to the Songs of the Fleet, which we heard earlier. This is one of my favourites. This is the Old Superb, and the baritone soloist is Gerald Finley. So from Stanford's Songs of the Sea, the Old Superb.
The wind was rising easterly, the morning sky was blue, the straits before us opened wide and free. We looked towards the admirable high, the Peter flew, and all our hearts were dancing like the sea. The French are gone to Martinique with 24 sail, the old Superb, old and foul and slow. But the French are gone to Martinique, and Nelson's on the trail, and where he goes, the old Superb must go. So westward, oh, for Trinidad, and eastward, oh, for Spain, and ship ahoy 100 times a day. Round the world if need be, and round the world again, with a lame duck lagging all the way. The old Superb was barnacled and green as grass below. Her sticks were only fit for stirring grog. The pride of all her midshipmen was silent long ago, and long ago they ceased to heave along. Flying out from home she was, and ne'er a week in port, and nothing save the guns aboard her right. But Captain Keats, he knew the game and swore to share the sport, for he never yet came in too late to fight. So westward, oh, for Trinidad, and eastward, oh, for Spain, and ship ahoy 100 times a day. Round the world if need be, and round the world again, with a lame duck lagging all the way. Now up, my lads, the captain cried, for sure the case were hard, if longest out were first to fall behind. Aloft, with standing sails, and lash them on the yard, for night and day the trades are driving blind. So all day long behind the fleet we crept, and how we fretted none but Nelson guessed. But every night the old Superb she sailed when others slept, till we ran the French to earth with all the rest. Oh, 'twas westward, oh, for Trinidad, and eastward, oh, for Spain, and ship ahoy 100 times a day. Round the world if need be, round the world again, round the world again. With a lame duck, lagging all the way.
Stanford's The Old Superb from Songs of the Sea. A wonderful song, I love it. Now, we need something to play us out with, because we are very near the end of the programme. So we'll return to Ron Goodwin's suite, Drake 400. Here is The Hoe on a Summer Night. Good night.